U.S. ambassador to China, former senator from Montana. The former ambassador is with me now. Same question to you to start off with, because obviously when you were there between 14 and 17, you had the same niceties to worry about, that you didn't appear to sort of give any succor to the idea of Taiwan independence or democracy. So when you see Nancy Pelosi there, what do you think?
Well, first, Taiwan is existential to the Chinese, not just to President Xi Jinping, but also to the Chinese people. They very much believe and want Taiwan to be part of China. Second, in the last few years, the situation is more dire for many reasons. One is we're just not talking to each other. When I was serving as ambassador, there were many conversations, many delegations. President Obama met several times with President Xi. There are virtually no visits now. Part of it's because of COVID, but irrespective of the reason, there's no visits. And the relationship just has gone south. It's much more intense now. China feels that it is an equal partner to the United States. They feel that way now. They did not feel that way as much a few years ago. So because it's existential, because it's they feel they're a major partner, a major player in the world today, this is a very huge problem. My view, frankly, is that she should not have gone. The goal of the U.S. foreign policy is to reduce tensions with China, not increase tensions. And her visit clearly is increasing tensions. There's no foreign policy reason for her to go. The Taiwanese know that we support them.
Right. But Ambassador, surely the Chinese are savvy enough to know that there's an element of U.S. domestic politics. There's an element of, and that if they just ignored it and just sort of said, U.S. politicians gone, fine, go, do what you want, would it be such a disaster for China?
Well, the problem is this. Of her visit, if you read her statement explaining why she's going, it just reeks of a very strong rhetoric in favor of Taiwan and very much in hatred, virtually, of China. It's an amazing statement, frankly. And so she's not just a visitor. She's not just a member of Congress. She's a speaker, and she's saying what she is saying. And again, this is an existential issue to Taiwan. The more Taiwan starts to look like it's becoming more independent, the more China is going to take aggressive action. They have no choice.
Do you believe, what happens economically as a result of this visit? Do you think the Chinese just focus on saber rattling in the strait, or do you think they actually take some economic measures wider?
Well, that's a very good question. And I think you're right to focus significantly on the economy. Already we have huge supply disruption issues, and the Chinese economy is not doing well. The U.S. economy is not doing that well either, frankly. The world economy is not doing that well due to COVID and the Ukraine war, et cetera. And so, and remember, Chinese, as much as anything, worship stability. They want to be stable. Right. They don't want to disrupt very much. And the U.S. is the same way. So I'm guessing their very significant actions may not be military. They could be something else. It could be economic. There's a whole range of issues that China can undertake, but it'll be significant, no question.
And I was just finding that statement that you were talking about. The speaker said, our discussions will focus on reaffirming our support for our partner. America's solidarity with the 23 million people is more important than ever as the world faces a choice between autocracy and democracy. Take that, President Xi, one could say.
Yeah, and I think her statement's a bit disingenuous. And add to that, she's a member of Congress. She can do what she wants. She is not the president. She doesn't have to worry about foreign policy worldwide. The president does, but she doesn't, and that's just, but that's a problem because she's the speaker and people listen to her.
Right. Finally, you obviously have still very good contacts and strong relations with China. From your view, is there a wish by the Chinese to improve relations with the United States, or are they content with the current level of, if you like, saber rattling, not talking to each other, basically rivals on the global economic stage?
I spend a lot of time talking to my friends in China, and it's clear they would rather work with the United States. It's changed a bit in the last several years. But when I was over there, my gosh, Chinese, they just almost revered America, open space, the blue skies, the mountains, the democracy, a form of government. I mean, almost revered. It's changed now, partly because of the tension and because the propaganda machine in China has ramped up its rhetoric against the United States. But by and large, deep down, most Chinese want to work with America. Why? Because they're just like American people. What do they care about? They care about food on the table, decent income, take care of their kids. And they know that that's more likely the more that they work with the largest country in the world, the United States.
Ambassador, thank you, sir, from joining us from magnificent state of Montana. I'm grateful that you were with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Richard.
In a moment.